Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back. Sal here. And today we're going to be breaking down these NFC, AFC Conference Championship games. We're going to be doing a full breakdown and getting into it, right? If this is your first time here, my name is Sal, so welcome to my channel. We've been growing at a great, rapid pace. I started making content in the DFS space, primarily on NFL, since that's what was in season when I started, about midway through, maybe a quarter of the way through the season, and it's just shot off. We've gained a lot of attention and attraction. That's thanks to all of you guys, so I appreciate it so much. And if you're new, consider subscribing. There's a lot of free things down below in the description that can help out your DFS game. Our Facebook group with a bunch of sharp players are in there helping each other out literally every single hour. Questions are getting answered by the minute. And then also there's a free guide down below. If you haven't already downloaded it, check it out. It's free, 9 pages on how to set yourself up to be more optimal and just be contrarian, but also be optimal, play the good players. Just a bunch of tips down there that I just put my a lot of time and effort in just to kind of help you guys out and also hone my own writing skills, selfishly enough, I guess. But yeah, let's get down into this slate. So check it all out. Welcome to the returning guests. Welcome. Love each and every one of you. I appreciate the support. So, 2-game slate, right? We'll start with the Rams and the Saints game and the early game. They're both on Sunday, and yeah, we're gonna get into this right now. I'm just gonna basically go position by position, which is eventually just gonna be slate by slate. So actually, I'll go position by position instead of by game. So we'll go with QB, running back, wide receiver, tight end. So this is where we're starting, right? And just as a general overview of the slate, I'll just be throwing some things out there, some things on pace that I found really cool, some things on just defensive pressure, explosive plays, which Ian Harditz, you should be following him on Twitter. If you do have a Twitter, and if not, you should try and get a Twitter just because it's the best news source for up-to-the-minute things, especially injuries, things like that. I have a list of a bunch of Twitter people that I can give out to you guys as well. That's great to follow, that I follow. It's just a list on Twitter. But he pointed out a lot of things about explosive play rate, and I actually have them written down or typed down in my phone right here, just so I didn't miss out on them. So all the teams that are left, all 4 teams are top 12 in explosive play rate, and that makes sense, right? We have a lot of good offenses left, and I mean, the Patriots are that number 12 team. That's what makes them the top 12. The other 3 teams are in the top 5, actually. So you know you're going to get explosive plays, and what explosive plays are just 20-plus yard plays, and the Chiefs actually lead the league. They led the league up until this point in explosive plays on the ground as well. They're number 1 overall, but explosive plays on the ground as well. Damian Williams is somebody who we'll get to when we get to that position, but he's just been filling in absolutely well. We'll get to his explosive play rate. The main stat is that he's had the most explosive plays in the league since he started getting the ball more, since he really got that start when Spencer Ware got hurt. And in the playoffs alone, he's ripped off 9%, over 9%, almost 10% of his runs have been for 15 yards or more, which is absolutely incredible, smashing everybody else in that category. So explosive plays are definitely something to watch. And all these teams have that ability to do it, and it makes sense that if you're this far in the postseason, that you have that ability, you have that good offense. Usually, for the most part, especially in 2018, the offenses are what's going to win you a championship. As cliche as it is to say defense win you championships, that's just not going to happen this year, right? There's not a single team. The best defense overall that limits those explosive plays are the Patriots. They're 15th. Which we're going to get to in a second. And then the other teams are all bottom 20, with the Rams being 30th. So maybe that's something to play a little bit more of Drew Brees here at 5,900. We see him. And we could start with Drew Brees. I mean, at home in the Dome, has the weapons. Last time that these 2 teams matched up, we know that both of these matchups are previous matchups of earlier in the season, which we don't see as often. And the last time that they matched up, it was just an absolute haymaker for both sides, right? It was just balling out, touchdowns everywhere, yardage everywhere. And I really don't see a reason for that to stop as much in the Dome. The Saints have been a lot better on defense. Now they're back in the Dome, but I'd rather Jared Goff in the Dome if he's going to have to go on the road anywhere. And I'd rather him be put in a position where he has to throw the ball. And if you're going to have Todd Gurley in the backfield, who might be limited by this top 10, this top really 3 Saints DVOA rush defense, it might be a little bit better to put some weight on Jared Goff's shoulders. Earlier in the week, I liked Jared Goff in the first look. At 5,400, it's hard not to like the guy. But this is a little bit of a different slate now. We see Patrick Mahomes, he's not in that 7K range, which is definitely very odd. He's come down. And Jared Goff is at 5,400, so it's a $1,200 difference, but really that's just a difference in, for the most part, usually it's a difference in your defenses. As we can see here, it won't be for the small game slate, but that's not a big difference of $1,200. We're not dealing with something $800 to $2,000 difference, where Patty Mahomes is usually 7,100, and you have quarterbacks down in that 4K range. So it makes it a little easier to play any quarterback you want on this slate if you can find the other pieces. I do like Jared Goff a lot. I like those potential stacks with Jared Goff a lot this week. Last week I was on Cooks and Woods, and really I think it was the right decision. Both of them played well, 60-plus yards for each of them when Jared Goff only threw 28 times, the 5th lowest or the ninth lowest in the Sean McVay era, the fifth lowest on the year, 28 dropback or 28 attempts. So that was just a result of C.J. Anderson going off, things like that. So I do like Jared Goff a lot. I also like Brady. So I'm liking these cheaper guys. I mean, you can make a case for every single person on the slate. You just have to, at the end of the day, see what fits for your lineup. And if you could somehow fit any of these guys for your lineup, at that point you have to figure out which ones are going to fit better with your correlations in your lineups. Who else? What are the most wide receivers and running backs that you're doing game stack wise? And maybe just throw a couple lineups in with each of them, because we know that quarterbacks aren't going to make or break you the slate usually. Any quarterback can go for 20 to 25. It's not going to break or make you the slate. Like if all these quarterbacks end up in the range of 18 to 22, that's probably not going to be the reason that you lose money, right? You probably have to have the guy who has 22 points to win everything, because that's how small the differentiation is at the top when you're trying to win a tournament. But at the end of the day, position players, the running backs, wide receivers, and also tight ends are where you're going to really set yourself apart. So don't stress too much about quarterbacks. Maybe if you want to build some stacks, it makes it a little bit easier for you. The one thing I will say, though, is that the Patriots, we mentioned, DVOA defenses are against those explosive plays. Patriots, out of the 4 teams left, are the best. They're 15th, right? I have some more notes over here on the Patriots being, let's find them real quick. We have New England's number 2 DVOA against the pass, and they're actually number 1 since the past second half of the year, number 1 in DVOA against the deep middle routes and middle to the field routes that are deep, and also middle mid-tier. So not short passes, so mid and deep passes to the middle of the field. They're actually number 1 again since the midway point. They're number 2 overall pass DVOA, and they're actually better against the number 1 receivers and then also the number 2 receivers. So the number 3 and beyond kind of get a little bit of their way against the Patriots, but that's something to put an asterisk on, right? Obviously, Patrick Mahomes and the whole Chiefs kind of absolutely destroyed and blew up the Patriots. That game was just points galore. We go to win in Week 6, 43-40. Absolutely, probably one of the best games of the year if that Chiefs and Rams game never happened. But he had 32 points. He went for 4 touchdowns, over 352 yards. I'm going to refer back to Ian Hartit's tweet one more time and his matchup manifesto, which is great because I had to make sure that I told and translated this information to you guys who haven't seen Ian Hartit's content. Because you're going to see that the Patriots probably have the best pass D left in this, and it's by a wide mark, right? We know the Rams, the Chiefs are pretty bad in DVOA against the pass, as well as the Chiefs being against the run, as well as the Rams not being as great against the pass. The Saints not great against the pass, even though they've been better at home, definitely, and the second half of the year, they're still 20th in DVOA against those explosive pass plays. Patriots come in at 15. That's middle of the pack, right? So you might say, okay, this is great. But keep in mind, it's the Chiefs. And keep in mind, number 2, Patrick Mahomes this year has faced 5 defenses that have been known to be top 12 in explosive pass rate, right? So top 12. So the Patriots are 15, so they're not even top 12. Those 4 teams that he played, these were his stat lines. Ready? At that time, it was the Patriots. They were in the top 12 at that time. Now they've moved out, probably because they played Mahomes. 352 yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Against the Broncos, he had 304 yards and 1 touchdown, and then the second time, 303 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. Against the Steelers, 326 yards and 6 touchdowns, and against the Bengals, 358 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. So he's going over 300 yards every time. In all but one game, he has multiple touchdowns, and in 3 out of those 5, he has at least 4 touchdowns. So Patrick Mahomes is absolutely nuts. He's a different breed when you're talking about defenses, things like that. Now, I know that a lot of people have been bringing up, okay, the weather in this game, it's supposed to be an Arctic blast, an Arctic freeze. I honestly haven't been checking the weather too much for that game because, one, it was like Tuesday and Monday when I was hearing about this, and it's just so far away. Weather can change so much. I'm going to be looking at that weather come Friday, which is tomorrow, and then also come Saturday a little bit more. Focus on it a little bit more, see what some of the guys are saying, the Ross weatherman for DFS, things like that. But if you guys have been following me, I'm somebody who doesn't really take into account weather too much into these games. I mean, we have the Chiefs and Colts game. Everybody was freaking out. There's snow on the field an hour before. Oh, it's going to be crazy. Like, first off, they probably have some kind of heating system to melt the snow underneath the field. That's for one. Pretty much every NFL stadium has that. As a former turf science major, pretty much any athletic stadium has some sort of way to get the field in shape outside of just letting it air dry, right? Or just having snow on the field. There's a way to get it off the field. And it was off the field. The field was fine, right, in that Chiefs-Colts game. It didn't hit the total for other reasons. It had nothing to do with the weather. So outside of this, I mean, I know it's a little bit different. I know that when people say, is huge for weather. I don't even believe in that too much because a lot of the stadiums actually block out, and that's starting to come out more and more. People are doing research on it. Most of these stadiums block out the wind that's happening outside of the stadiums. There's not like this tunnel that's coming in and just sweeping all the footballs away. That's not what's happening. So in freezing cold temperatures like Lambeau, things like that, that's what we're about to get this weekend, potentially one of the coldest games, if not the coldest, they're saying at this point. That's something to definitely take into account, right? It's just, I don't know how much I'm going to take into account until I can see that final weather report come Saturday, even Sunday morning. Obviously, I think it's a good situation if the weather is terrible for the running game, and I think a lot of people are going to be on the running game. But when people come off of a guy like Tyreek Hill, when people come off of a guy like Travis Kelce, maybe even Sammy Watkins, who's at a low price we'll get to, if the weather is the reason that people are coming off of guys like that, then I'm going to jump on them because their talent's still there. A guy like Patrick Mahomes can still launch a deep ball into a bread and butter basket into Tyreek Hill's arms. Why is the cold going to stop that? Maybe he gets out of his break a little bit slow, but you have to keep in mind that it's also going to be the same for the defense. The defense, their bodies aren't going to be maybe as warm or ability to react. Tyreek Hill's a small, shifty guy. I don't see the potential there. On the other side of the ball, I know that Tom Brady, who we've talked about, I like the stack options with Tom Brady. I mean, you have James White, Julian Edelman, which was a great stack last week. A sneaky stack could be targeting a guy like Gronk. Brady's going to do good in the playoffs. That's just how he is. He's controlled. He doesn't make mistakes. Probably not going to see a turnover out of him in the playoffs. It'd be rare. If we do see one of those, although we see out in the Super Bowl. But Brady's he's just consistent, right? And what's he going to be doing? He's going to be throwing checkdowns. I know that he's older. I know that he's slower. I know that people are saying the cold is going to make his body tighten up. But what has he been doing all season long that's done well for him? He's been checking the ball down to James White. 15 catches last week for James White. Were any of those above like 4 yards? Maybe. I don't know. I don't think so. He's been hitting Julian Edelman in the slot for at most like 10-yard slant routes, right? Rob Gronkowski isn't running deep routes. He's running crossing routes. Like Brady doesn't have to stand in the pocket and elude anything. Like he's getting the ball out quick. So I don't think this is going to hurt him that much, the weather. The weather in this game, I'm going to let other people overreact to it because I think that the way the offenses are set up, the Patriots for short passes, the Chiefs also ability to short pass to their running backs, two guys like Tyreek Hill running under routes, but also just Patrick Mahomes being an absolute dynamite, and the fact that like the cold's going to make Tyreek Hill drop more balls. I get it that it's going to be maybe harder on his hands, but those gloves that receivers wear are insane. So that's just my take on the cold as of right now. I'm really not letting it go into my game plan. I'm going to let other people drop their ownership on some players. So we kind of talked about quarterback. I mean, moral of the story, you can go with any of these guys. They're all in good situations. I think that Drew Brees might be a guy who gets a little bit overlooked. And if people are going to jump off Patty Mahomes because of the weather, I'm jumping right onto him right now. If I see that any drop in ownership is coming, like a bunch of people are freaking out, I'm going to go right to Patrick Mahomes unless we're going to get a 2-foot snowstorm. But right now, I'm kind of liking Jared Goff at his point, and I'm really liking Drew Brees as well. But again, any of these guys are fine. I'm going to be playing lineups probably with all of them in it, or at least teasing around lineups, and then I'll make a stand with two guys. Getting to running back now. So a couple of things on running back here. The Chiefs last in DVOA against the run. The Saints are also going to have some upside against the run going up against the Rams. Those are the two easiest matchups, I mean, relative to the other teams out there. So, yeah, the Chiefs are pretty terrible against the run. Sony Michel is going to be a hot play this week based off of what he did last week. Keep in mind, though, that he has no passing game role. Keep in mind, though, that last time he did play the Chiefs, he did go off. So he definitely has had success against them. James White, absolute beast. I think that he's pretty good play to keep playing. These guys are just priced so cheap, right? I mean, the highest priced running back in this slate is very loose price because you don't see anybody in that 9K range that we've seen. The highest priced guy is Michael Thomas at $8,200. The highest priced running back, which is very rare, $7,500. We haven't seen that, right? Todd Gurley has been limited in practice. C.J. Anderson out there potentially hurting his upside, they're saying now. And Draftkings is kind of reflecting that with the price. I really haven't been on Todd Gurley a lot this week, and I don't think a lot of people are on Todd Gurley. What seems to be the chalk right now, of what I've been hearing from the Facebook group and just the DFS community, Damian Williams, James White, / Sony Michel playing two Patriots running backs. This seems to be the chalk at running back, right? James White and Damian Williams. And it should be, right? I mean, we know what James White does in the playoffs receiving the ball. We know that Tom Brady's best option is to throw short to Edelman or White. And you really can't you can take away Edelman in the slot, but you really can't take away that backfield, those short intermediate passes, really just short behind the line of scrimmage passes to James White. You can't take those away. You can take away the yards after the catch if you tackle better, but the PPR standpoint, getting 8 catches, you can't take that away if he's going to be getting 10-plus targets. Damian Williams is the same way. So here's a stat for you. Kareem Hunt in 2 games against the Patriots, he's gone over 200 total yards, and he has, I believe he has 2 touchdowns in those games. Yeah, he has 2 touchdowns in those games, or 3 touchdowns in those games, averaging 1.5. So that was Kareem Hunt, right? In the same exact type of role that Damian Williams is in. Damian Williams potentially even a better pass catcher than Kareem Hunt. Some scouts have been saying, or actually reporters have been saying, analysts. And then you take Damian Williams, who since he's gotten this role in a handful of games, he's caught 23 of 24 passes, he has 160 receiving yards, and he has 2 touchdowns. You're going to insert that role into this offense, playing the Patriots, who have been completely slow linebackers all year against the running back. It's been a place to target them, and they've just been killed by this Chiefs running back scheme, which is one of the best in the entire league, similar to Pittsburgh. You can just plug and plot any running back into that scheme, and it's going to do well. So Damian Williams at 6,400. I don't know how this guy's not more money, right? I mean, he's had 3 games where he's gotten the entire run, and he's gone for basically 30 in each of them, 30.3, 29, 29.4, right? He got pulled in this game against Oakland at the midway point, basically, when Patrick Mahomes got pulled. He had 13 at basically the midway point, right? He was on his way, well worth his way to another 20-plus game. Damian Williams has just been a stud. Now, there is worry that Spencer Ware is going to come back. Spencer Ware participated limitedly. He's at 4,200. Here's the thing. Spencer Ware, even if he comes back, I feel like he'll just take over that Darren or whatever the other Williams is out there behind Damian. I feel like he's going to take over that role of getting, I don't know, let's see what the other Williams is getting out there. Do they even have him on here anymore? They took him off? No way. Yeah, 3,500. Here we go. Darrell Williams, 3 carries. He ended up getting a touchdown in that game. 3 carries for 9 yards. Like, Darrell Williams, Spencer Ware might become maybe a little bit of an upgrade of Darrell Williams. Don't take this into account. That's when Damian came out at the halfway point. He's not going to get 11 carries, Darrell Williams. But if Spencer Ware comes back, I think that you see a situation where Damian Williams is the better pass catcher by far and receiving option, and he's probably better between the tackles as well. Like we said, he's broken off 7 15-plus rushes in the postseason. That's 9% of his runs. 7 of 75, 9% of his runs so far, over 9%, the highest out of any running back by a good amount, by almost double. So Damian Williams is a guy that even if Spencer Ware comes back, I see Spencer Ware, like it said, what's the report saying? Practice in limited fashion Wednesday. If he practices fully Thursday and Friday, it's a little bit more of a risk, but at the most, I see him touching the ball 5 to 7 times in this game. I can't see you taking the ball out of a guy like Damian Williams' hands when he's had so much success in so little time, really. So my stance on running back is that this is going to be the chalk, Damian Williams and James White. They're both good players. You should probably be playing them. If Spencer Ware sits out again, there's no way you don't have Damian Williams in your lineup, just like last week for me. Just an absolute lock spot. The way that these Chiefs running backs have performed all year, especially against the Patriots and the limited matchups that this offense has had under Andy Reid against the Patriots, running backs have dominated. I spoke real fast there. But outside of that, Sony Michel is going to be a guy who, for me, is going to be a potential fade candidate. And I know this is a terrible idea, but if he's going to be inflated ownership, and here's the thing, last week he went off, right? If he doesn't go off last week, he's going to have, let's just say on a 2-game slate, he comes in at 25, 30% owned because he hasn't gone off last week. Now that he's going off, he's coming in at over 50% owned. There's no doubt in my mind. Due to his price of $5,600, due to the fact that he had success earlier in the year against a bad Chiefs defense, and it hasn't improved at all. And people are going to click on the game log, and they're going to see his last performance, and they're going to be like, yep, Sony Michel's playing, he's going up against bad Chiefs defense. And that's probably smart, right? That's honestly probably smart. But I got to pick my spots somewhere, and as of right now, I think I'm going to be, maybe not completely fading Sony Michel, but I'm going to have some fade in there, at least outweighing the field in terms of fading him. And it's nothing against Michel. He has a great matchup. He's an outstanding player out of Georgia. It's mainly the fact that his ownership is probably going to be double what it should be because he went off last week, and people are going to take recency bias into account. And if the public is over on some player, just over their head and over the hill on a player for no apparent reason, shout out Tyreek Hill, for no apparent reason, he's a potential fade spot, right? Public's usually wrong. Their expectations usually don't come true the majority of the times. They just get overhyped on emotion, and I'm going to let people get overhyped on Sony Michel. C.J. Anderson, complete fade for me unless something happens with Todd Gurley. Anderson might come out and get 15 carries again. He might go for 100 yards again, but for me, I don't want to play it against the New Orleans Saints number 3 DVOA defense. I'd rather play a guy like Gurley who has a little bit more, who actually has, a ton more passing game upside, and if he gets healthy, if Gurley becomes a full participant, I think a lot of my lineups are probably going to start Williams, Gurley, and then potentially White in the flex. I mean, I put Williams in the flex for the higher late swap potential, but this is probably how a lot of my lineups would start if we get word that Gurley's practicing fully come Friday, something like that, as of right now. So that's where I'm at with running back. I mean, If you guys want me to talk about anything else, I think Mark Ingram and Kamara, I haven't really hit on them. I think Kamara's in an absolute smash spot. But for me personally, I'm just worried about these splits between him and Ingram. I think Ingram, both times against the Rams last time, they both had really good games. Ingram's just a guy I can't really put out there because Kamara's actually taking more work away from him. But Ingram still gets enough work to kind of hit into Kamara's value. And if we kind of just have to pick based on price and based on the upside, I think Damian Williams has more upside than Kamara. If Kamara is going to be splitting with Ingram and Williams is going to be getting the full load outside of maybe 5 touches that Spencer Ware would get, I think a guy like James White has a very similar role to Kamara in the passing game, if not a better role than Kamara in the passing game and a better matchup in the passing game. White's not going to get the ball on the ground, right? That's his role. He won't get it on the ground. But I think that he has maybe not better upside, but just better security due to that insane passing game role. So, yeah, Kamara probably ranks this week for me. Probably two or three. I got Damian Williams right now at number 1, and then Kamara is there. If Gurley practices in full, Gurley's going to be number 2 for me, Kamara 3. So Kamara is going to be in lineups, so I'm going to play around with it. Ingram, not so much. Outside of there's no one left. Rex Burkhead, you could play around with at 3,400. He could be a potential guy who gets you 10 points, and you have to have him to win a tournament because he's dirt cheap and nobody's going to be on him. So that's definitely an interesting play for sure. But for the sake of time, there's not much left there. Let's move over to wide receiver, and there's really not much at tight end. So we'll finish with wide receiver. I'll glance over tight end. Michael Thomas is going to have his way against the Rams. The Rams ranked 28th in DVOA pass against the number 1 wide receiver. Michael Thomas is by far the number 1 wide receiver on the Saints, and they're actually very good, or a lot better against the number 2 wide receiver. So a lot of people are getting excited about Ted Ginn this weekend, and rightfully so. He's been running a lot of snaps up there. He's been seeing a good amount of targets, catching some balls. And if we go to Ted Ginn here, he's cheap, right? So Ted Ginn's at 4,300. You could fit him in a lot of lineups, back-to-back weeks with at least 7 targets. Here's the thing with Ginn, though. He's evolved a little bit in the Saints offense. He's not just a one-trick pony, but he's going to have a tougher matchup. Michael Thomas can move around all he wants. There's probably not going to be a Aqib Talib, who's probably a little overrated at this point. He's getting pretty old on him. But overall, the Saints or the Rams can't defend the number 1 wide receiver. They can defend the number 2 and also the number 3 options to an extent. I'll take that trend, which now is a pretty decent sample size of like 17 games. I'll take that trend right now, and I'll take Michael Thomas at 8,200. I'm going to fade Ted Ginn, who's going to get the lower, be that attractive low option, and I'm going to go elsewhere at the low option. Tyreek Hill is a guy that I love. We mentioned in the last episode that this guy just absolutely smashes, right? Tyreek Hill against the Patriots in 2 games in man coverage, or Tyreek Hill just in general in man coverage has dominated this year. The Patriots are the defense in the league that plays primarily the most man coverage, and Tyreek Hill against the Patriots in 2 meetings is averaging 130 yards, 2 touchdowns a game, and it's just absolutely ridiculous. Patrick Mahomes last week targeted Tyreek Hill 13 times, the second most that he's ever targeted Tyreek Hill in their short career together, and that was the most important game of both of their careers, right? A playoff game at home with the bye. So I don't see anything else changing. I think Tyreek Hill is still going to get coverage. I think that Stephon Gilmore can't guard him. Devin McCourty might be the guy that actually gets the Tyreek Hill coverage, and Stephon Gilmore might stay on Sammy Watkins. And if that's the case, Tyreek Hill is obviously undersized in any matchup. McCourty's going to have a little bit better of a time probably than just speed-wise keeping up with Tyreek, but nobody can keep up with Tyreek. I love Tyreek this week. I'm kind of warming up to the idea of him. I'm somebody who never plays him because if he doesn't go off for you, he's going to burn you in your lineups, and he usually costs a lot of money. This week he is going to cost you a lot of money, but there's only really 2 elite options at the wide receiver position in terms of pricing, Tyreek and Michael Thomas, and in this situation, I want them both, right? I think that it could be very viable. And I haven't built lineups, right? I haven't built a single lineup, haven't entered a single lineup. I've just been looking at the players and researching, haven't looked at lineup construction too much. But I think it's very viable to be doing something like this, at least to start some of your lineups, right? You can get a guy like James White in there. This is a very viable start. I mean, you plug any defense you want in. Really, any of the defenses can go off. You don't have to think too much about that. Now you get $5,000 per guy. You plug like a guy like Goff in, and this is me just throwing together the quickest lineup ever. You can still get Woods in at 5,700. Tight end, you're going to have to come down to Gronk, and then you can get at 4,800, you have a lot of different options. You go Mark Ingram, Ted Ginn, Sammy Watkins. So that's something that you could do, leave some money on the table, differentiate yourself, right? So that's just something quick. Like, I'm not thinking about that lineup at all. I don't even know what I really just put together already. But there's a way to get both those guys in there. I think Michael Thomas, again, is going to have a good game. And Tyreek Hill is kind of a coin flip. Like, will he have a good game or not? He has all the talent in the world. It's just a matter of will he get the targets. And if he gets the targets, he's going to get them. He's also getting work on the ground. That also helps. Edelman, I love. Edelman's going to get peppered with targets. He's the only guy out there. There's talk of him getting double teamed now in the slot, which is something you never see, but he's just been the only way that they move the ball down the field is through the slot. I do like Edelman this week. I mean, all these wide receivers are good at this point. My favorite is stacking the Rams up again, going right back to them after not a lot of people were on them last week. And if people were on them last week, they got burned because C.J. Anderson went off and cost the whole Rams receiving game a ton of upside. I'm fine going right back to a Goff, Cooks, and Woods stack because it's going to be even lower owned than it was last week. Goff coming in at like 7 or 8%. Lower owned in relative to the slate, right? It's not going to come in that low because there's only 4 games compared to there being 8 last week, or only 4 teams compared to 8. So it's going to be higher owned than that, of course, but relative to the slate, it'll be under owned. We talked about Ted Ginn. I think Josh Reynolds is a sneaky play if you want to go with a guy like Brandon Cooks and then go back with Josh Reynolds or Robert Woods with Josh Reynolds and stack it that way and get even lower ownership and save over $1,000, $1,500. I think that's very smart. Sammy Watkins, he's just by far the most mispriced player on the slate. Maybe you can argue Damian Williams is. I probably would, that he should be in the 7K range. But Sammy Watkins at 4K, he came back, 8 targets, 6 catches against the Colts. You don't want to look at one game sample, but that seems like his injury is pretty much behind him. We did talk that Stephon Gilmore might be on Sammy Watkins, so that is something to worry about. But again, Patrick Mahomes is the quarterback here. Don't think too much into it. This guy is 4K. If he's going to see 7 targets in this offense and he is healthy, and there's going to be attention on a guy like Tyreek. There's going to be attention on a guy like Travis Kelce. And remember earlier, we mentioned that the number 3 option against the Patriots usually finds success. It depends now. Are they going to classify Travis Kelce as a wide receiver and try and take him out as the same instance that they do with wide receiver 2s usually? I'd say yes, which that leaves Sammy Watkins the 3rd option, which leaves him potentially the best matchup on the slate, or on the team at least. So Sammy Watkins is a smash play at $4,000. It doesn't take much. If he gets in the end zone, he's getting you there, no doubt about it, probably. So Sammy Watkins is a great play. Has that upside like we saw, 33 points in this game, but also does have a floor, so watch out there. But at 4K, it's not much risk, and I think Sammy Watkins might end up being maybe not the most owned player on the slate, but surprisingly in that top 3 most owned player range due to the fact that he's super cheap. Has the upside. He's had production this year. People know what he can do, and he allows you to do other things with your lineup. So definitely keep an eye on Sammy Watkins. And that's about it, right? I mean, the thing I'll say about Chris Hogan is he has the best matchup in this game for the Patriots at wide receiver. He's going to be on Ward, who's very undersized compared to Chris Hogan. Chris Hogan last week had 5 targets again, which is good to see. He's getting some utilization out there. Chris Hogan could be that guy against a bad Chiefs defense that absolutely wins you a matchup here, right? Last time against the Chiefs, he had 78 yards, which isn't a bad game. If he has 12 points at below 4K, you take that all day long on a 2-game slate. So Chris Hogan's an interesting play. Dorsett, I'm not really thinking about having another big game here. Robinson, I'm not really thinking about him doing much of anything here. That's pretty much it here, right? I mean, you can go down here into the dumpster land. I'm not going to go down there, though. Tight end, it's a wasteland. But a couple of things to keep in mind here. A lot of people are going to see, or at least Ben Watson is questionable now, but a lot of people are going to say, oh, Ben Watson, oh, Everett. Last week, so many people were on Everett thinking that this guy's a stud or something. I know he's had a couple good games target-wise in the past few weeks, but I know you can get down here and get up at other spots, so potentially, but let me just let you keep this in mind. Everett's not even on the field for the majority of the snaps out there. Higbee's on the field for almost twice as many snaps out there. Higbee also doesn't get many targets, right? But he's on the field for almost twice as many snaps. So you're not even playing the primary tight end. Maybe in the receiving game you are, but just in terms of on the field for snaps, you have to go with Kelce or Gronk. Gronk's on the field for 93% of the snaps. Kelce's on the field for 90+% of the snaps as well. You're going to get a guy like Everett on the field for 40%. You're going to get a guy like Watson, who people are trying to play Watson. I don't understand. The guy's on the field for less than 40% of the snaps as well. The guy who's on the field the most is Josh Hill. He's on the field for double the amount of snaps. So this is just a wasteland. Stick with Gronk and Kelce. Gronk has been a bum. 8 out of 9 games, he's had 3 or less catches. That's pretty terrible. But all it takes is 1 week and you get a little savings. But Kelce's going to be the guy who's just absolutely chalk owned at tight end. I see Kelce coming in 70+% owned, maybe even 80+% owned, which puts him in that potential fade, or not fade, but outweigh the field in terms of not playing him position. That's about it. That was a lot, right? I want to keep this under 30 minutes. We're about to get there. Thank you guys so much. There's things to talk about defense. I don't really want to get into that. Just pressure rates and stuff. They're all pretty bad. So thank you guys for watching. My name is Sal. Make sure you check out the description below. If you're still watching right now, it's almost over. Drop in the comments below. You watched the whole thing. I want to reach out to you and thank you for that. So appreciate it, guys. Best of luck this weekend. 5 videos in 4 days. We're moving up. Make sure you subscribe if you're still watching. Peace.